how's it going, guys? That's right, the Trader's back. And in today's video, I'm going to be going over why I'm seeing a lot of people saying that authorized user trade lines don't work anymore in 2025. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. First thing I got to say, though, is this video is for education/entertainment purposes only. None of it is a call to action, only for fun and education and entertainment. Now that I've said that, I got to go over what exactly a trade line is for those people that have been living under a rock. Authorized user trade lines are when you're added as an authorized user onto someone's credit card account. If that happens, for most credit cards, the account limit, age, payment history, all that good stuff will then transfer over to the person who was added, and it will start reporting as an authorized user. And if the payment history is good, the credit limit is high, the history is long, and all that good stuff, that's going to make that person's credit go up because it's a positive account. Now, a lot of people are wondering, okay, well, what the hell? Why does this even exist? I'll tell you a little bit of the history. In the 1970s, there were a lot of people who were upset, mainly women, that they weren't able to build credit because most of the men were going and working, building credit, while the women stayed home and took care of the kids and did all the housework and all that good stuff. Well, if anything happened between the two, like they got a divorce, the woman would be out on her own with no credit history or nothing, and that would put her at a disadvantage. So then they came up with this idea and said, okay, well, we'll have the ability to add someone as an authorized user and then report them as an authorized user so they can build credit that way. Only problem is, in the 2000s, there was a group of guys in Atlanta that decided to abuse this by using authorized user trade lines to commit fraud. They basically made a ton of CPNs, added authorized users, and just kept running it up. I mean, they wore it out, those guys in Atlanta. That's one of the reasons why credit repair is scrutinized so much in Atlanta, is because, well, that group of guys, man, it was millions of dollars. For those of you that don't know, that was some historical epic shit that they did. But anyways, they definitely screwed it for everybody else, because now a lot of the banks and the regulators are now basically, they've caught wind to this being able to be abused. So flash forward to now, in 2025, do authorized user trade lines still report to people's credit? Yes, they do. But there are some things that I think people are missing, and there's some things I'm seeing on the surface, on the outside looking in, that would lead people to believe that authorized user trade lines don't work anymore. And I'm going to go into it right now. One of the first things that I've noticed are there's a lot of people trying to sell authorized user trade lines now, way more than there ever was even 5 years ago. And a lot of people that are getting into this don't know what they're doing. Banks aren't stupid. Banks actually encourage you to add authorized user trade lines if you're being added like by a family member. They even stated on their website that you can help boost your credit score by adding an authorized user. It's because if you add someone as authorized user, chances are they're going to start charging, which the banks get paid every time you swipe that freaking card. They get a finance charge, and they're also going to be able to collect information to be able to market things to more people. So, like, yeah, great, add authorized users. The catch is the banks don't want people buying and selling authorized users. But the banks don't know the difference. They can't see it. It's not like when a credit report is pulled, it goes, this person bought it. It doesn't work like that. So they kind of got to go and look at it and be like, all right, well, what's going on here? So what they do is they'll look at an account and see, okay, here's an authorized user trade line that was added to this person's account. But this authorized user trade line has had no action at all. It's had no charges in like over 5 years. And it was just added. Well, it clearly doesn't look legit. And clearly this person was just added so they could boost their score. So the banks will look at this and be like, okay, yeah, well, it'll report, but we're not going to count that because it's obvious what the hell's going on here. That's why it's very important that you know where you're getting your trade lines and make sure that they know what the hell they're doing. Tradeline Vault knows all about this stuff. They're pros. They've been around for years, and they can take care of you if you're trying to buy trade lines. If you want to have a friend or relative, you want to be added by them, just make sure that they actually use the card. Once in every 3 months is pretty safe, but you've got to have action on the card, or the card, it won't be counted by some banks. Some banks don't care, but some do. But that's definitely one reason why people are saying that they don't work, because they buy the trade line, and they go to try to get something. Oh, I can't get approved for anything. And probably the reason is the card's dormant. There's such a thing called a dormant card. It's a card that's had no action on it. So if you do get an authorized user trade line, you need to make sure that the card has got or had some sort of balance on it in the general time frame that you bought it. That's one. Two, there's a lot of people out there that are trying to sell primary trade line accounts. Now, primary trade line accounts, that is something that it's a rare find if you can find someone who's actually legit. Because there's a lot of people who promise that they can get trade lines to post that are primaries, and they can't. And I'm going to tell you why. Primary accounts, the only way to get a primary account to post is to have a data furnishers account. Data furnishers are people who are able to actually post to the credit bureaus. That is something that is incredibly hard to get. You've got to go get scrutinized. You have to have somebody come over and they inspect your business. You've got to have like so many accounts in order for them to even entertain giving you access to be able to post. It's a big rigmarole to get that data furnishers license. And if people are selling backdated primary accounts, that chances are they're going to get investigated because the bureaus are going to see the activity that's on there, that what the data furnisher is doing, and they're going to be like, all right, what the hell is going on over here? They'll investigate them and then shut them down. I think that's one of the number one reasons why people who start selling primaries, they aren't able to be around for very long, because the credit bureaus will come in and be like, all right, we see what you're doing, so we're going to go ahead and take away your ability to report, which means they're hosed, and all those accounts that they added are going to be poof, gone. That's definitely one of the reasons. Another reason to stay away from backdated primary trade line accounts is just the simple fact that they're so expensive. I mean, it's thousands and thousands of dollars, and running the risk that it's not going to post. I mean, it's like, honestly, it's probably 50-50 that it's going to post. It's not a high percentage. Whereas authorized user trade lines, if you get them from the right place, they'll post 95% of the time, and they're way cheaper. So if me personally, I would always go the authorized user route over the primary route because it's cheaper and it's less risky. You know, I'm not trying to be loose and fast with my money. You know what I mean? Now, another thing or another hiccup I've been seeing people do is when they go to buy an authorized user trade line, they'll go and buy some super cheap trade line, and then they'll go to apply for something and they'll get approved for some small secured card or some small card, and then won't be able to get anything else after that. I'm going to tell you why. It's because when you add an authorized user that's cheap, chances are the history is going to be like 6 months, and the limit's going to be real low, like $500. So when you go to and apply and get something else, they're only going to give you some small limit card, like a secured card or some small limit Capital One card. And then after that, you're going to go and apply for things, and your credit age is going to be really low because it's going to be averaging 2 cards that are almost new. That's going to look really bad on your credit. It looks like you just applied for 2 cards and got approved. So they're going to be like, a third one? You want a third one? No way. So that's why it's important, if you want to do things fast, you got to spend the money and get a card that has a high age and a high limit. Now, if you want to do things slower and you want to save money, then great. Yeah, go for the cheap trade line. I mean, that's definitely a way of doing it. It's basically like, what do you want? You want it to take longer? You want to spend more time or spend more money? Pick your heart. You know, like, you can't have both. So that's basically how you got to look at it. I think a lot of people think that, oh, they got a trade line on there, it's posting, and they should be able to get approved for all this stuff. Well, not all trade lines are created equal. You get what you pay for in most cases. So another thing I'd like to talk about when I see people saying that authorized user trade lines don't work, they're a waste of money, they don't post, and you shouldn't use them. The banks have put out propaganda against buying and selling authorized user trade lines because they don't want you doing it. They want people to be added as authorized user trade lines, and they want them to use the card. They want to make money. They don't like other people making money. They want to make the money. So when they see people buying and selling trade lines, they know that those people aren't going to use the card because they're not going to have access to the card. So they're against it. They don't, and they also, there's a lot of people out there, not all, but some, that are using this shit to run up CPNs and commit fraud and all that bad stuff. I don't advocate that. I think that's not a good idea, and you could end up going to jail, like, you know, some of the people that we all know. but it's something that, people do, and the banks don't want you doing it. So it's like they've got to put out propaganda saying that you shouldn't buy authorized user trade lines, but then they also want you to have authorized user trade lines because they want your friends and relatives to do it. So it's kind of like, damned if you do, damned if you don't, double-edged sword. Another thing that people do on social media, because this is now like the new currency of the world, or views, people will make videos about authorized user trade lines not posting or not working anymore because it gets views. There are a lot of people out there that rely on authorized user trade lines as far as their business is concerned or whatever they're doing. And if for some reason authorized user trade lines stop posting, that's going to affect them. Their business is going to go poof. So of course they're going to click on that if they think it's going to give them some information that's breaking. So that's why a lot of people will write that, but it's simply not true. As of right now, 2025, February, authorized user trade lines still post and they still affect credit scores. You just got to know how to use them right. That's the long and short of it. Could that change? Of course it could. But as of right now, it still works. And in my opinion, authorized user trade lines are the fastest way to improve your credit score. It's like a loophole, a hack. It's just there. It still works. It's beautiful, if you ask me. So that's all I got. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe. Crusader out.